So today I want to talk about. Wait, what was it? Oh, I wrote it down somewhere. Um, hmm. Oh yeah. Eh, Have you ever had this moment when you sit down in therapy and you want to talk about something and then you forget? Or maybe you never had anything on mind at all? This happens in my office at least twice a week. And while they persist on and still have a session, they often reflect that they feel lighter and they weren't sure what they were going to talk about, but they're glad they came. I hope that after watching this video, you have a similar experience, because today we're going to talk about what to talk about in therapy, especially when you have that moment of blankness. First of all, when you sit down in therapy and you have that feeling, sometimes it can feel like there's this sense that everything's suddenly fine. I don't pretend to be a soothsayer or a forecaster. I'm more than bet that everything is not fine. And even if it is, it's okay to talk about the fact that everything's fine. Everyone has their own interpretation out too. When you have this feeling that everything's fine and there's nothing to talk about in therapy, maybe that's a cue to space out the sessions a little bit. I have people that I meet weekly for a few months, and then we meet every other week for a while, and then once a month for a while, and then we slowly discontinue therapy. Maybe that pause indicates that's time. Maybe it also means that you've made so much progress in therapy and you feel really safe in therapy that this has become a context that's safe and relaxing. So while the chaos in the world is on your mind all the time, as soon as you sit in this room, you're allowed to be at peace. What a wonderful thing. I hope that's your experience at some point. Either way, I want to talk to you about different methods to approach things. Let's start off with talking about small things. If you have that moment of pause, you're not sure what to bring about, talk about random things that have happened. It doesn't need to be this grand, I had this trauma as a child. You don't need to get there right away. You can talk about getting coffee. You can talk about how you organized your laundry. You can talk about a new hobby that you want, or maybe some irritations that you've had throughout the week. Everything's okay. Sometimes these small things breed to bigger discussions. For example, maybe there was a conversation that I had and I was a little anxious heading into it, and so I paused, I regulated my body, and I decided to ask a tough question like, what's one lesson you think people should learn in life? As I head into that conversation, I notice my body tense and my core tense and then relax. It shakes and trembles a little bit, and yet I head on to that conversation until it's done. I can talk about that in therapy, especially if that's something that I wanted to or maybe didn't want to, and it felt like it was something subtle. As a therapist, I may explore what was it about the people you were with or the context of that question or the environment that created a threat in your brain. What was it picking up on that made you feel like you needed to defend yourself? Is there history? Is there a way you were feeling there? There's a lot of ways to dig in. Maybe we approach it from a different angle. 0 to 10, 10 being proudest you've ever been. How proud of are you for asking that question despite feeling anxious? A lot of different ways we can go. So feel free to talk about the small things that you have, even if it doesn't feel like a big thing. The second thing is using the present moment, the right now. What are you thinking? What are you feeling? What's going on in your world in this present moment, and reflect upon it. Sometimes this is called metacognition, or thinking about thinking. That's helpful. I don't know what to talk about, and I think that's kind of scary. Other times, you can use the right now to build upon the relationship you have with your therapist. This is called rapport. Sometimes taking things down a notch and just saying, I don't want to do therapy wrong and I don't know what to talk about, gives you a chance to talk with your therapist that there is no right or wrong way to do therapy. Maybe you don't want to have conflict with your therapist and you feel like this is conflictual. Let's use that. That's okay. Let's talk about where you're feeling like this is a threat, where you feel like maybe the therapist is judging you or you're judging you. That's okay too. Use the present moment to explore it. For example, I remember going through therapy myself and reflecting upon this feeling like I couldn't have conflict, I couldn't share my experience. And one time I bravely chose to open up, and I almost cried, and the therapist asked me, "Are you okay?" That subtly, to me, implied that I wasn't allowed to have emotions, that I needed to be okay. And I brought up how that stopped me from talking. And we got a chance to really explore some history of times where I felt like I had to be okay in life. And when asked that question, it brought back some of that. And so we explored that and got to a deeper understanding. If I didn't use the right now, I wouldn't have challenged that moment. And that led to healthy conflict. It brought us closer together because we were curious about that experience. Another tactic is to bring a list to talk about in therapy. I often have people that ask me, is it okay to bring a list in? Yes, we can have lists to bring into therapy as well. I have several clients that either have a to-do list of things to check off, and as we go about each one, they check off little boxes. And I have other people that will scan or type out a journal entry and send it to me, and I'll read it before our session. That gives us a chance to understand it and dive right in when we're there. So there is no pause of what am I going to talk about? It's already been established. Another way that you can do so is as you're waiting in the lobby or you're driving in, take out your notes or use text-to-speech and ask yourself, if I were to leave this session, what would have to happen for me to feel like it was a meaningful session? That can give us an idea. I want to learn a new skill. I want to learn a new approach to shame. I want to have an understanding of why I think this way, why I feel this way, why this popped up at this moment. Cool. You are absolutely free to bring notes into your session. You are free to bring your journal, your diary, whatever you want to call it in a session. Do whatever it takes to help you feel like you are getting the most benefit possible from your therapy. Now, that can mean that there is a right way or a wrong way to do therapy, and that's absolutely not the case. If you're not a note taker, that's totally fine. If you want to use serendipity or chance or luck, cool. I also encourage you to consider how often this pause is happening. How often do you head into therapy with something to talk about and you forget? That may mean it's time to take notes. That's okay. I also want to give you permission to be boring. My wife used to ask me, any breakthroughs today? And she was well-intended in trying to connect with me. Breakthroughs do happen, but defining a breakthrough is a little bit more different. Maybe I, as a therapist, saw a breakthrough or my client saw a tough time. Maybe what I saw as underwhelming information landed really powerfully and was an epiphany to them. Sometimes we don't know when they happen. Essentially, I try to focus on things that are in our control. Maybe you want to say, I want to learn one new skill. Maybe you want to use that skill in context before you talk about it in therapy. Any and all answers are totally fine. It's okay to be boring, and sometimes when we're boring and we don't worry about having a breakthrough or epiphany, we build the relationship even stronger. We're able to talk about commonalities. Maybe we talk about just something that you enjoy, from auto detailing to plants to anywhere in between. It's okay to be boring and build the relationship up, especially if maybe that silence meant you felt unsafe. Starting small, being boring on these small things is a really good thing. That is okay. Finally, I want to finish by reinforcing and reassuring you that there is no wrong way to do therapy. If there's something on your mind that you want to talk about, be willing to be the leader and talk about that thing. If you want to take a step back and ask your therapist, say, I'm running out of things to talk about. What do you think I could benefit from learning? Ask that too. That's okay to ask your therapist to put a little bit of effort in there too. Every therapist will be a little bit different, and that's okay. Essentially, I want to really reinforce that if you're in this moment of, I had something to talk about or I don't know what to talk about that. That's okay. When in doubt, still attend. Put effort in and you'll get effort back. If you're wondering how to get better and you're finding yourself stuck or you're not sure where to go, feel free to check out my website at begincounselingtoday.com and learn a little bit more. You can also schedule your strategy session for free over the phone. It's a 15-minute block where we can talk about how we would structure therapy, what would be best for you, whether it's using measurement tools to track our progress or just taking a relational approach and finding patterns and themes throughout our life. That's what start off therapy saying, I don't know, and that's okay. I'm proud of you for putting effort into it, and I hope that you learn that you can begin counseling today. Thanks so much, and take care.